Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's accounting lesson. My name is Mrs. Bella Machetla, and this lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. Now, today we'll be revising still, and we'll be dealing with reconciliation. Specifically, we will be dealing with the debtors reconciliation and the age analysis. All right. Now, this lesson is very important, and you need to pay very close attention because it can help you gain a lot of marks, right? To change your 13 to a 40 or your 29 into a 40%. So please make sure you pay attention to the tips and all the information that I'm going to provide in this lesson. All right. So by the end of this lesson, you must be able to do the following. You must be able to understand the concepts that are relative to our debtors reconciliation. And then you must be able to calculate the balance of your debtors control. And then you need to also be able to calculate the total of your debtors list. And we know that obviously the total of the debtors list must be the same as the balance of your debtors control. Okay. Then lastly, you must be able to analyze and interpret the age analysis, specific or the debtors age analysis, if I may put it that way. All right. Now, these are the exam tips that you need to pay close attention to, and then that will assist you in your exams for your prelims. All right. Now, first things first, you need to take into consideration the following. When you go into the exam room, you must make sure that you're using your time effectively. All right. And then when you are preparing for the exam, you must start with the questions that you master. Right. So you go into the exam room. Right? You make sure that you're using your time effectively. So you can't sit and think for too long. All right. Then secondly, you start first with the questions that you master so that you can spend less amount of time on them. All right. And then you can accumulate as much marks as possible. Then you must use the time guide allocated as your guideline. So you will see on the second page of your exam paper, there's a breakdown of topics and the number of minutes you need to spend on that particular question. Please use that as a guide. Don't just continue on one question while you're still struggling and you haven't covered other questions. So you are going to start with the questions that you know best. And then from then on, you accumulate all the marks while you still have time. And then you can carry on and start doing other questions. But most importantly, spend enough time or the required time on the particular question. All right. Then you need to know all your formulas and all your formats. Now, going into exam room without knowing your format is like going into a war without any weapons. You need to make sure that you are well equipped for the war that you are going into, all right? Which is making sure that you are getting your 100% in accounting. Then, lastly, you need to attempt all the questions. You cannot leave a question unanswered. Try your best. Even though you think that you might not know the answer, attempt the question. You might find that you do actually know the answer and you do understand what is required of you. It's just self-doubt. So please attempt all the questions so that you can maximize the number of marks that you're going to get. Every mark counts, grade 12s. All right. Then, specifically with the debtors reconciliation, you need to know what the definition is of a debtors reconciliation and what the purpose of a debtors reconciliation is, so that you are able to answer the question should the examiner want to know, right? So it's an internal control process where the debtors control is compared to the debtors list, where differences are identified, investigated, and corrected. So that is the process of the debtors reconciliation. Why do we do debtors reconciliation? So that we are able to identify the differences. We are able to identify what errors and omissions, and also to be able to verify that our books have been accurately done, meaning all the transfers were actually done accurately. All right. So that is the whole basis of our debtors reconciliation. And we need to understand the purpose, and we also need to know what is our debtors reconciliation. All right. Then When you look at debtors reconciliation, the main aspect is that we are checking that our debtors control account is the same as our debtors list. Now, this is how the accounting equation or accounting cycle process starts. There is a transaction, right? That is step number one. The second step is that there is a source document that is attached to that particular transaction. The third step is that we are recording in our journals, right? Our CRJ, DJ, and so forth. Then from our journals, then we move on to we post the totals of our journals in our T accounts, meaning our general ledger. And over here, you post that to your ledger account. So step number 4 is the ledger account. So over here, you have the general ledger. This is a summary, the general ledger. And then you've got the debtors ledger, right? So this is specific to each and every debtor. You will see we've got debtor number 1 who is owing 2,500. We've got debtor number 2 who is owing us 1,800. We've got debtor number 3 who's owing us 1,500, and debtor number 4 who's owing us 2,200. Now this total debtors creates our debtors list. And our debtors list must correspond with the debtors control. Why must they correspond? Because these amounts, as much as they are done differently and they are recorded at different places, the same information is used. So there's no way we are using the same information and we are not getting to the same point. So that is why they must correspond, because the transactions that are being recorded in the debtors ledger are the same transactions that are being recorded in the debtors control. The difference is that in the debtors control, it's a summary. So it's the total amount of all the transactions that took place. While in the ledger, we have our separate individual accounts of each debtor, and then we can total that amount. Then we will be able to identify how much money our debtors are actually owing us. So the point is that the debtors control account and the debtors list must be the same. If they are not the same, it means that there were errors, there were omissions, and that is why we are doing our debtors reconciliation. All right, so that is the basics, and that is where we are at this present time. Now let's look at the typical transactions that are in the debtors reconciliation. Now, the transactions are as follows. A debtor bought goods on credit. When a debtor buys goods on credit, we know we are dealing with a DJ transaction, and then the source document in the DJ is an invoice. When the debtor buys on credit, what is happening to the debt? Is the debt becoming more, or is the debt becoming less? In this case, they are going to owe us more money, and that is the effect that our invoice is having in our debtors control. Then when a debtor paid his account, we are receiving money. And when we receive money, we record in our CRJ, right? And then our source document will be our receipt. Now, the big question, what is happening to the debt? Is the debt becoming less, or is the debt becoming more? When the debtor pays the money, then the debt is decreasing. Hence why this transaction is becoming a negative. All right. Then we have, we allow a discount to a debtor. It's also a CRJ transaction. And then the source document will be a receipt. Then the question, when we offer a discount to the debtor, will the debt decrease or increase? The debtor does not have to pay the money. However, the debt will then reduce. That is why we have a negative. Then goods are returned by a debtor. Will the debtor still owe us that money? No. That is why the effect is a negative, because the amount of money that they are owing us now will reduce because they have brought back our goods. And the journal will be the debtors allowance journal, and the source document is the credit note. Interest charged on an overdue account of a debtor. Now, in this case, we are charging the debtor more money because they failed to pay us on time. So it's a GJ transaction because it's a non-cash transaction, and the source document will be a journal voucher. And what is happening to our debt? The debt for that particular data is going to become more. The data is going to owe us more money because we are charging them an interest. Then an irrecoverable debt, or we are writing off a debt, are we still going to receive that money? No, we are not receiving that money. Will the debtor still owe us that money? No, we are canceling the debt that they have with us because they cannot afford to pay us the money. So hence why it's a negative effect. The journal will be a GJ because it's still a non-cash transaction, and the source document will be a journal voucher. Now, these are the type of transactions that you are going to find in the debtors reconciliation. And what is most important is to identify whether the debt is becoming more or the debt is becoming less. And if you know your source document, it's easy for you to identify whether the debt is going to increase or the debt is going to decrease. All right. Now, let's look at the possible errors, right? So what possible errors might happen there? Now, an error can happen saying that the transaction was not recorded or it was omitted. When a transaction is omitted, it will affect our control account and it will also affect our list. So you must know that whenever a transaction is not recorded, we have to record it. And if we record it, we then record in our CRJ, and then from that point on, it's affecting all ledgers. All right, the individual personal ledgers for the debtor and also the general amount for the debtor's control. Right, then an incorrect journal total, meaning maybe there's an issue with the DHJ, it is an incorrect total, or the incorrect total of the debtor's journal, then that will only affect the control account, okay? Because it's the total that is being posted to the debtor's control account. All right. Then, if an amount is overstated or understated on the journal, this transaction will only affect the control account, okay? And then, the amount overstated or understated in the personal account, then it will be affected on the personal account. Then thirdly, incorrectly debited or incorrectly credited, it depends where, all right? So if it's incorrectly credited, then you know that it's a double entry. You need to correct it and then add it on as it was supposed to happen. So you will multiply that value by 2 if it's the same amount, or you will remove the incorrect one and also allocate the correct one. So it's two things that are happening in this transaction when they've incorrectly debited or incorrectly credited a particular amount. All right, now I want to go back to the journal. Remember, we said we start first recording in the journal and then we record to the ledgers. So both the control account and the list will be affected over here. All right, so that is the situation when it comes to the possible errors and how you are going to approach it. Right, now that is the end of our examination tips, and I hope it's fruitful and then you'll be able to apply this whenever you are doing this type of question. Right, now let's quickly do an activity. The activity says, calculate the correct balance of the debtor's control account. On 31 August 2024, provide figures and a plus and a minus sign for each correction. If there is no change to the balance, indicate with a 0. All right, so I will give you 5 minutes to quickly go through the information over here and complete the activity. See you in 5 grade 12s. Welcome back, grade 12s. Now let's quickly look at the information that is presented to us. It says the balance on 31 August before taking errors and omissions below into account was 359,100. This is the balance of the debtors control. And obviously, that's the amount that we are going to start our debtors control account with. Okay, so the errors on the omission: no entry was made for the credit sale invoice issued to N. Naidu. So what is happening here? There was an invoice that was issued, right? And there was no entry. So what do we do, grade 12s? Obviously, this is affecting both the debtors control and the list or the ledger, the personal ledger of the debtor. All right. So is this an increase or a decrease? Are they owing us more money or less money when we issue out a credit sale invoice? Obviously, the debtors are going to owe us more money, so therefore it will be a positive amount over there. You will see, there it is. Right. Then we move on to the next transaction, which says the debtor allowance column in the debtors allowance journal was understated by 11,000. All right. So what is happening here? Do you see that it's a total that has an error? So when the total has an error, only the control account will be affected. Okay. Now, in this case, this is the debtors allowances. Now, debtors allowances, what effect does the debtors allowances have on the debt? The debtors allowances reduces the debt. Okay. So they say it was understated. So that means that we need to subtract some more. We need to reduce some more. All right. So then we will continue on and subtract our 11,000. No problems there, right? Then we move on to the next one, which says an EFT payment of 5,700 was made by W. Duplessis. This was correctly recorded in the relevant journal, but was posted as 7,500 in his account in the debtor's ledger. Now, does this involve the debtor's control, grade 12s? No, it does not, because the error, it was done correctly in the journal. So then that means that the amount that is posted in the debtor's control is fine. The only issue is on the personal account, on his account. So then we will then have to do it on our list. All right. So then let's look at the next one. It says the credit sales to V. Esterhazen 5,200 was incorrectly recorded as 2,500 in the debtor's journal. Do you see that? On the debtor's ledger. Okay, so let's quickly go check there. It says we had to find the difference between the two, and then it was an invoice. So then we have to add the 2,700, and then we will then plus and minus accordingly. We say 359,100. We add the 4,500, subtract the 11,000, add the 2,700, and then we will get our 355,300. Now that is how you approach the question, grade 12s. All right. Now, let us do another activity. Now, this activity is looking at the debtors list. All right. So with that, you will see that it's a quite lengthy one. So I will give you 6 minutes to quickly complete this activity. See you in 6. Welcome back, grade 12s. Now let's quickly look at the errors and the omissions that have been provided. No entry was made for credit sales invoice issued to Naidu 4,500. We've already said that no entry is affecting both the list and also the debtors control, right? So then we are going to go to the list and go look for Naidu. It's a credit sale, so their debt is going to increase. All right. And then we add the two totals, and that will give us our 6,700. Right. Then we go on to the next transaction, which says merchandise sold on credit to S. Sibia for 18,000 was incorrectly posted to the account of V. Esterhazen. So there is an issue with the two accounts. Do you see that? So what do we need to do in this regard? Does this involve the debtors control? No, it's only involving the the debtors list. All right. So it says we sold goods to Sibeya for 18,000. No, actually, we sold goods on credit to Sibeya for 18,000, and it was incorrectly posted to the account of V. Esterhazen. So then that means that we need to remove the 18,000 from V. Esterhazen and take it to Sibeya, right? So let us correct the error. So we subtract the 18,000, there it is, and then we add it to S. Sibeya. All right, then let's move on to the next transaction. It says there an EFT payment of 5,700 was made by W. Duplessis. This was correctly recorded in the relevant journal, but was posted as 7,500 to his account in the debtors ledger. All right, so then what do we do over here? So in Esterhazen, the payment was 5,700, but we posted it as 5,700. What do? We find the difference between the two. We will say 7,500 subtract 5,700, and then it will give us the difference. All right. And then what do we do with the difference? We have overstated the amount, right? And remember, what impact or what influence does an EFT have on the account? It reduces the account, okay? So it means that we have reduced too much. So then what do we need to do? We need to then add back the difference. All right. So we have calculated the difference, I hope, and then that difference is 2,700, and that is that. Then you add the two together and it will give you the total. Then for S. Sibeya as well, you add the 18,000 with the 69,000 and it will give you the total over there. Now let's look at the last two transactions or the last two people involved over here. The credit sales of 5,200 was recorded incorrectly as 2,500 in the debtors journal. All right. So that one is fine. We've dealt with goods returned by J. Nyoko. 3,450 were posted on the wrong side of his account. Remember what I told you about the wrong side situation? The wrong side situation is that we have to make sure that we do the right thing, but we are then going to do two things that are involved. All right. So we are going to say it's on the wrong side. There it is. So I just want to quickly highlight the source document before I can give you the work through with the answer. It says the goods were returned by N. Jok and were posted on the wrong side. So when the goods are being returned, it means that the debt must become less, right? So if they did the wrong side, it means that they increased the debt, all right? So they, instead of subtracting 3,450, they added the 3,450. So then what do we need to do? We need to subtract the 3,450 and subtract another 3,450. So what they were supposed to do, they were supposed to say negative 3,450. That's what was supposed to appear. But they did plus 3,450. So what do we need to do? We need to subtract 3,450 and then we will find 0. Then we need to then do the transaction properly so that it appears accordingly. All right, so that is the calculation. Now, let's quickly look at the calculation there. Negative 3,450, 1 mark, negative 3,450, and then you will get your 8,800. Now, this is the Duplessis transaction where we calculated the incorrect amount. There it is there, where we find the difference, and then the 1,005 and then the 13,300. Then what do we do at the end? We plus and minus accordingly, right? Obviously, in this case, we're just adding everything together. But the main rule is, do you see that your debtors list is now equal to your debtors control? And now we can say that we have successfully reconciliated our books. Our books are now matching. All right. Now, let us look at another aspect that is relevant to our debtors reconciliation. This is our debtors age analysis. Now, what is the debtors age analysis? Now, the debtors age analysis is a tool that we use as the business to manage our outstanding debts, right? And it helps us also to identify the debtors who do not comply with the credit agreement, all right? So we allow people to buy on credit, but we can't just, say, oh, okay, they're buying on credit, and we don't know whether they are complying or not to the debt that they've actually taken. Are they paying back on time? Are they meeting their credit limits and so forth? So we are using our debtors age analysis to ensure that whatever that we have agreed upon is actually being fulfilled. All right. Now, it also displays the breakdown of the debtors' account balances for each specific period for selected debtors' accounts or a range of selected debtors' accounts. Okay, then the debtors' age analysis is also useful for the following: to deal with the credit control so that the people don't take too much credit. So if a specific data has an allowance, or rather a limit of 10,000 Rand worth of debt in this company, then we need to ensure that we don't allow him to exceed that limit of 10,000. And then it also helps us to anticipate any cash flow problems. So whenever we realize that our debtors are not paying us as they should, then definitely we are going to have then cash flow problems. So then it's easy for us to identify at an early stage so that we can mitigate the possible problems that would arise based on debtors. All right. So that is what is relevant or relative to our debtors age analysis. That is the whole reason why we do this, so that we are always prepared and we are realistic in whatever projections that we have with regards to our money or our profits. Okay. Now, another internal control question that can be asked is the debtors clerk or the debtors credit controller. And what is the debtors credit controller responsible for? Now, this person is responsible for monitoring the debtor's credit rating before extending any credit to a debtor. Then the debtor's clerk must also monitor the accounts in order to avoid them exceeding the limit. Okay? Then they must ensure that all the payments are received as the credit agreement stipulates. Then lastly, we are looking at they will approve the credit sales before any order is delivered to the customer or consumer. Now, what possible errors or what possible problems could we identify from doing a debtors age analysis? We will be able to identify the slow payers, the people that are taking too long to pay us, and how much money is actually outstanding for that period. We will be able to also determine who is exceeding their credit limits. Then thirdly, we will also see if there is continued sales to defaulting debtors, because one of our mitigating strategies for making sure that our debtors pay us is that we will not sell to them if they are not paying, right? So then it does not make sense for us to continue allowing them to buy on credit if they have not paid their debt. Right. So how do you approach this debtors age analysis question? What do you do as soon as you find it in your exam paper? The first thing that you're going to do, you are going to analyze the information that is provided. So you'll be given a table that says age analysis, and you will have the total and the different time frames or periods that are allocated and how much money is expected or that has been paid. Right. Then they will also provide information on the credit limits, how much each debtor's credit limit is, and whether they have exceeded the credit limit or not. So then you need to check if the debtors adhere to the credit limits. All right, when you are analyzing the information. And then you need to check that the debtors are adhering to our credit policy as well. All right. So our credit policy varies from business to business. One business can have a 30-day or 60 days and so forth. So it's very important for you to read through the transactions, read through the information, because the information will tell you that we are expecting that our debtors to pay us within the next 30 days, or we have a 60-day policy. All right. Then from that point on, you quote. Whenever you start commenting or you're answering this question, it's very important that you quote the debtors' names and the figures. And you can do a quick calculation to actually identify the percentages as well. So it's very important, the name of the debtor and the figures, how much they are still owing or how much they have exceeded their limit of. Okay. So that is how you approach the question. Now, with that said, grade 12s, let us quickly do a quick question. It says the information relates to Timo traders. Their credit terms are 60 days and it is expected at least 90% of the debtors to adhere to these terms. 90% of the debtors need to pay according to the 60-day policy. Then it says provide a calculation of figures to show why Timo traders should not be satisfied with the figures and the debtors age analysis. What do you need to do? Quickly calculate. All right. So I will give you 2 minutes, only 2 minutes to quickly calculate and verify and tell us why they would not be satisfied with that, because they've said that we're using a 30-day policy, right? So see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back, grade 12s. I know the 2 minutes was just, 2 minutes, but the point is you need to use your time more effectively. You need to make sure you're not wasting time when you're doing these small calculations, okay? Now, this is what's happening. We've got our age analysis table, right? Now, this is indicating how much money we are expecting to receive within a specific period based on previous figures. Now, over here, we've got 240. This is the total debt, all right? Then what is paid, the current month was 118,000, all right? Then what is paid within 30 days was 360, and then, 36,000, and then within 60 days was 38,000. Now, everything that was paid within the 60-day period is compliant, all right? Then everything that was not paid is then non-compliant. So we are not meeting our 60-day mark over there. Now they have indicated that you need to calculate, right? You need to show us why they are not happy, why this is not a good look at all. Our target, we said, it's 90% for the 60 days, right? This is what we want to receive within 60 days. Now let's quickly show the calculation. Now 192,000, where am I getting the 192? It is the 118,000 plus the 36,000 plus the 38,000. Now this is all the people or all the totals that are complying within the 60-day period. Now these are the amounts that we received out of the total of 240, and that will give us 80%. And what was our target? Our target was 90. So they will not be satisfied because we wanted to get 90% of our money by 60 days, and we are only getting 80%. Okay, then, or you could have chosen to do the part that's non-compliant. So that will be the last two columns added together will give you the 48,000 out of the 240, and that will give you your 20%. Okay, so this is 2 marks, 1 mark, and this is your principal mark, and that is your 4 marks, grade 12s. Okay, now let's look at the internal control measures that are relative to this question, because obviously after you're done with the debtors age analysis, then you need to mitigate the problems that you have actually identified. Now in this aspect, we saw that we are not achieving our goal, right? So what measures can we take to deal with these problems, all right, that we have identified right now that we did not meet our target of 90%. Now, we need to encourage customers to pay using a debit order to avoid delayed payments, all right? Whenever you do your internal control questions, grade 12s, you need to make sure that you elaborate on a point. Don't just say debit order. you have to elaborate. You need to explain what you mean by saying debit order. All right. Then you can also say implement a reminding system. You can send them SMSs regularly to remind and notify them about their outstanding debts. Okay. Then you can do proper screening of the debtors, because if you don't do proper screening of the debtors and they can't afford the amount of money that you've allowed to actually purchase on credit, then it's going to be a problem because you will not receive the money at all. Right. Then you need to decrease the credit limit of the customers who are not adhering to the credit terms, so that we are able to get our money and not allow them to have higher credit than they actually can afford. Then offer various payment options that are available. Like already, you've got the PayFlex right now. You've got different payment methods that you can actually do. So then allow the customers to be able to explore the different ways in which they can pay, so that we as the business can get our money. And then the most basic one is offer discounts for early payments. And then also another aspect, you can charge interest if they are paying late. So those are the basic ones. And everything that I've mentioned over here is in addition to that. So sometimes the examiner can tell you, without talking about the discount or allowing the discount for early payments and charging interest, what other methods? So it's always good to know at least 4 to 6 methods that you can apply in this type of a question. Study them grade 12s. That is a whole 4 marks, if not 6 marks, that is in the bag if you know the internal control measures. All right. Now, your homework says the following. Explain 2 points of advice that you will offer the owner, right? And then it says, note, the maximum discount is granted to the debtors, so you can't use that as a point. And then it also says the interest at an accepted rate is also being charged. So this cannot be part of your advice. It means any of the 4 points that I've just mentioned can be your possible answer for this question. Now, on the next lesson, grade 12, we'll be looking at creditors reconciliation. We'll be talking about the creditors control account and comparing it with the creditors list. And we'll be dealing with the creditors ledger and the account statement, or you can say the creditors statement. Okay. That is the account that we are receiving from our creditors every end of the month. Right? Now, that's what we'll be looking into in the next lesson. Now, with that said, grade 12s, have a lovely one. Thank you for joining us, and then we will see you when you see me. All right? Bye.